Hitting your approaches with spin, getting these wedges dialed and ripping back on the green is a dream of many a golfer. But it can become a reality if you just believe and get your technique sorted. For this video, I've teamed up with my very good friends at Hack Motion and their new sensor. This allows me to measure my wrist angles throughout the swing and is an absolute game changer to understand what is happening at impact. For more information on the Hack Motion, make sure you check out the description below. But everything within this video you can just take forward by watching and understanding what we're talking about. Some things to understand first. Your club and your balls are essential. Loft on the golf club, so the amount that is angled towards the sky, is the key thing that we're trying to control at impact. It's also the reason why a lob wedge, which I have here, is going to spin more generally than an 8-iron. But no matter the amount of loft that you have on a golf club, you need to make sure that the grooves, so these slits within the club face, are nice and clean. Spin is created with friction on the face, and these grooves allow dirt and allow water to be channeled away from the point of impact. And if they're clogged up, you're just simply not going to get enough spin. Secondly, the ball you use is going to have a huge impact on the amount of spin that you generate. As a general rule of thumb, the softer the ball, the more it's going to spin. So as your nice clean face approaches your high spinning golf ball, there are certain conditions that we want to try and create. And one of the things we want to try and control is called spin loft. Simply put, if your club has a static loft of 60 degrees, so how the manufacturer made it, and at impact with the handle leaning forward, it is reduced to something like 45 degrees dynamic loft. If your angle of attack, so the amount that the club is moving down through impact, is say -5, you're going to equate to having a dynamic loft of 50 degrees. It's been believed for some time that if you create a larger amount of dynamic loft, that will lead to more backspin. But a number of leading professionals have done research on this, and they say that having a little bit more of a narrower spin loft, so not quite as much difference between dynamic loft and angle of attack, actually will help create more spin over short shots. Why am I telling you this? Because don't believe that you're going to have to hit down super aggressively to create lots of spin. As a general rule, and to keep this nice and simple, we want to see a bit of a descending blow into impact. But if you're not ripping a massive beaver out of the fairway, don't worry. You can still generate spin as long as you take just a little bit of a shallow, crisp divot after the ball. If it is a little bit deeper, that's fine as well, but don't feel that you need to dig to create spin. Now for this video, I'm going to be using my 60-degree wedge, and I'm hitting a shot here of 90 yards, which is pretty much a 3/4 swing for me and my lob wedge. But these teachings can be applied to pretty much all your wedges. And we're going to be looking at how the wrists and how the hands work in conjunction with the body to create the maximum amount of spin. Now to keep this simple, we're going to focus on 2 movements within the wrists. We're going to be talking about hinging, so the amount that the hand basically moves back towards the body, the amount that the club is pointing up at the sky in this position here, but then also flexion and extension. So the amount that the wrist can move in this direction or bow, or the amount that it can extend or be in this cup position here. So those are the 2 areas of focus. So the first thing that we want to see is a wrist hinge. Now simply put, as you can see, the club is straight down at the ground here. If I get it pointing straight up at the sky, at this halfway stage within the swing, you can see my lead arm is straight and the club is pointing up at the sky. The only way that I can get that position is to hinge the wrists upwards. Now this helps with speed, but also angle of attack, so you can strike down on that ball a little bit more. A nice simple way to practice this, just with a pause drill. Take it up to halfway, have a little bit of a hinge, so you get that club pointing up at the sky, and then continue on your swing, just to get it set, and then swing. Now if you have a fairly neutral grip and you hinge your wrist correctly, you can achieve a pretty flat angle here between your wrist and your arm. Now if I was to put it in extension, you can see here on the Hack Motion sensor how it's moving into a plus position. If it was bowed, I'd be moving into a minus. Really at the top, I want to try and get this around neutral. So matching, matching. With that type of position, it allows you to control the loft of the club a little bit better. But what about moving into impact? How can you control loft and also achieve a slightly downward angle of attack? So I've got this nice neutral position at the top and that wrist set. And what I'm going to try and do and get the feeling of is that I'm going to move my wrist into a slightly flexed position coming into impact. So this feels like I'm bowing my wrist in this direction coming down and through. Now as an exaggerated position here, club face is closed, I can move my hands ahead from this position, so I have a downward angle of attack, but with this position as well, I'm not relying on doing this. I can actually create a downward angle of attack, control loft, whilst moving that club around the body, so it doesn't have to be a super huge, steep, massive, whopping divot. But what are we looking for? So with the hack motion, I can see this really easily because this is what the sensor is designed to do. But I don't want you to be in this position. This is way too exaggerated. I'm just using this as an example. But if we can return with that slight bowing, that slight feeling of flexion at impact, that is going to allow you to control all the factors that you need to create spin. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. So top of the swing, +8, so a little bit of an extension, then -18 impact, just holding the angle nice and solid. The reason that I like this feeling as well, so having a little bit of flexion moving down, is what would happen is the club usually moves a little bit shallower in the downswing, so it moves slightly more into this position. What I tend to see with a lot of lessons that I used to have is they used to come in this direction here, and then the wrist will become way too extended moving through impact. If you can get the feeling of having that slight flexion, it allows you to turn on top of the golf ball. And this is the final part of the video. So we've got our hinge, we know we want to match these two up, and we want that little bit of flexion coming down. But what about setup? Now an easy way to think about this is unless you're starting to move into a proper full shot, so let's say even if it is with a wedge, we're talking about 3/4 swings here, that type of feeling, you can have the ball position central and then just put about 60% of your weight on your front foot. As you take it back, just try and maintain this position. This will allow you to stay on top of the ball and control your low point, your angle of attack, that little bit better. So 60%, hinge, flex, move through. So big thank you to Hack Motion for teaming up. Like I said, get into that description below if you do want more information, but you can take this forward yourself and work on your game. For more information and to better improve, continue your swing quest and just do marvelous things out in the big wide world, check out these videos here.